Sairam, everyone. Welcome to the Sai Voices of Belonging podcast. I'm Anjali. I'm a YA from the Bay Area. And
I'm Madhu. I'm a Y from Region 2 near Washington, D.C. And there's a cow behind me. We've gotten lots of requests. Okay, I don't know about lots, but we've gotten few requests for long form content. Just us talking about whatever we want to talk about. So we're kind of here to start off that thing. We want to create like a positive LGBTQIA plus community where there's representation, where we, talk about our the confluence of our spirituality and our queerness at the same time, and make sure we emphasize that there's no need to choose between the two, and we want to increase awareness of all the queer identities and related topics through having fun.
yeah, and already we have a lot of content that we've made on the website. You should go check that out. But I think this podcast is more aimed at maybe explaining some of the nuances and just like having a different perspective that's more of a personal perspective than maybe like an educational perspective. I have a question for you, Madhu.
Oh, okay, I'm
Oh,
ready.
okay. So how many people do you know that are LGBTQIA plus that you've met at Sai Center?
Oh my gosh, I know three.
Wow. Wow. What a wild
And
concept.
those are only after a few of them are only after I came out personally. So before then, I knew like one.
Yeah. Well, did you know that 7% of Americans identify as LGBTQ plus? Seems like a lot compared to the three people that you know from Sai
Yeah,
Center.
it does seem like a lot.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe because they are there in the center, but because of our largely South Asian community and the stigmas and the way our centers are run, they decide to get out, or they're not out, or they're struggling to understand their identities. There's no forum to like express themselves or ask questions. There's no openness.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that too. And I think even of the LGBTQ people that I know, many of them are not out or super visibly out, especially within the Psy community, right? Like they're
Yeah.
more comfortable being out in other settings that maybe are less conservative and maybe there's like more normalcy in those settings because
Yeah.
there are other people who are out. But I think like it's so we're in such a like small like microcosm and in that small microcosm it's like there's just a handful, at least that we know, there's just like a very small handful of people who are like out and like quite comfortable being out and like are visibly out that we know
Mhm.
within even just like the whole country.
Yeah. I can name like the queer side people that I know through like even after side voices of belonging and like meeting all these people. Like I can count them on my hands, on my
Yeah,
fingers.
me too. Well, we know the same people probably.
Yeah, yeah, we do know the same people.
But
Like,
yeah,
like I didn't even know you existed.
I mean, I knew you existed.
No, before Side Voices, I
Oh,
mean. Like
yeah.
I didn't know you existed.
I told you that I knew you existed though. Okay,
Okay,
anyway.
you're obsessed with me. We get it.
No, not like that. No, but like someone was like, "Oh, I know another gay person." And I was like, "Huh?"
Yeah, I think maybe I heard that too, but like,
But that was it.
but it wasn't that everyone knew. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. I only found out you existed because I was gay and somebody knew you were gay and they
Yeah,
put
yeah,
the two
yeah.
together, you
I think
know?
it's the same person who did that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But there's no visibility for queer people in the side community just to everyone.
Yeah, because I think that like that, and that's the problem, right? Because if you're closeted or just like figuring things out, or even if you're just straight and
Yeah.
cis, like there's no, because you don't have that representation, there's no like normalcy of like, oh,
Yep.
this is just a normal thing. And I think that that is like a problem, right?
That's the whole reason that
That's the
you like
whole,
started Side Voices of Belonging in the first place.
yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, right? To kind of
Yeah.
create that normalcy. And I think that in doing that, maybe some people have come up with the counterpoint that like Sai
Oh,
Center is not the place to be bringing up these, identities. And I,
interesting.
yeah, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
People's counterpoint that
Yeah.
Sai Center isn't for the queer.
No, that it's not, that's not the, like, I think that it's like not like, who cares, basically.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
oh, oh, oh.
it's not that
Like
significant of a
everyone is the
counterpoint.
same. There's no differences between everyone. We should love everyone the same. Like that.
That point, exactly.
Well, that's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, excuse me? I mean, I agree, okay? We should love everyone equally. Everyone deserves the same amount of love and respect and humanity, right? But you also have to understand the nuances that arise in society and in cultures, specifically South Asian culture. I know Sai Center is not South Asian, okay, but let's be honest. It is. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but it is.
We can
It's
say
so,
predominantly.
yeah, and it's also shoved down people's throats that are not South Asian. So there's that. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, in that type of environment where there are certain things that are being perpetrated and like shown as a standard, you have to understand that you are not like, what's it called? You're not being inclusive. And inclusivity goes beyond treating everyone the same, right? Inclusivity goes so far as to bring people, not bring people, but show to certain minorities and undervalued communities that like we love you, we accept you, you are worth something. I believe in you. You know, you can't just flat out slap everybody across the face and be like, y'all are the same. That makes it feel like the person who is constantly ignored and constantly invisible, that they are again the same.
Well,
You
I
know what I
think
mean?
I see what you're saying, and I think that there are like some examples we could give for this, right? Like, I think we are the same in the sense of like from an alchemic standpoint, yeah, we're all the same,
Yes.
right? But I
Yes.
think that like when like we live in a world where like God created us with all these differences, right?
Hmm.
Like physical differences that are like very worldly, right? Like
Right.
from a so we have all these differences, and you can't treat people the same. I don't know if you've seen the like equity, equality,
The
justice thing. I
baseball
think it's,
game.
yeah, equality, equity, justice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where so there is a person or there are three people. One is
Hmm.
tall, one is like medium height, one is short.
Hmm.
And then there's a fence, and
Hmm.
there's a baseball game happening on the other side of the fence.
Hmm.
And the tall person can see over the fence. I don't know if the medium height person, I don't think the medium height person can see over the fence. And then the short person can't see over the fence, definitely. And then they put like some stools. So that's equality. So everyone
There's like
gets the
three
same, there are three
boxes.
boxes, right? And everyone gets the same height. So the tall person could already see. So this is like not an issue for them. So
Yep.
they're just also standing on the stool. Then you have the medium person, now they can see. But the short person still can't see over the fence. So then when we have equity, now instead of the tall person getting one box and the short person getting one box, the tall person has no box because they can already see, and the short person gets two boxes and now they can see. So now they're all like from an like they're all have equity. And
Hmm.
then when they do justice, they just get rid of the fence.
Right.
And now they make the fence see through so everyone can see. So I think that to me, like going from equality, like that like counterpoint that we were talking about feels like equality, not equity. And I
Yeah.
don't think that equality, like treating everyone the same, even if that's not how they want to be treated. Like if imagine if I just called everyone he, him pronouns, okay? That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do because I want to treat everyone the same. Like that's
Right.
not what people want, right? Everyone doesn't want me to use he, him pronouns for them. So it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. And I think that's kind of maybe the point where that like treating everyone equally and treating everyone like well, like equal doesn't mean like literally equal. Equal means treat everyone with the equal amount of respect,
Yeah.
equal amount of love. Don't make distinctions because you like a certain group of people and not another group of people. But
Hmm.
it's like also comes down to like asking people what they want, what they need, and trying to understand that. And like that understanding leads you to the same conclusion of like, we're all the same. Like
Yeah.
we all have the same atma, all of that. But if we don't ever understand these like worldly nuances, we can't understand how to help people. Not necessarily just LGBTQ people, but all people for whatever differences that we have.
Hmm.
I think another thing that I feel like when people are like, oh, you like don't bring your queerness to a Sai Center, right? Like it's not a thing that comes up. I would disagree with that because it's like
It does
if
come up
it does
all the
come up,
time.
right?
It
Like
doesn't come up like, are you queer? It doesn't come up like that, but it's like so inbuilt in how people interact with each other. You don't even realize unless you're on the other side of it.
yeah, like for example, I've like never seen someone like a man and his husband, a woman and her wife like come to center before. But like everyone comes like husband and
With
wife to
you,
center,
yeah,
right?
with their family unit, yeah.
Yeah. And like you just don't like you don't see these things, even though they're normal and you see them like outside in that like outside world. But I
Yeah.
feel like we don't see them in this like Psy world ever. Or like someone who's trans who maybe was sitting on one side and then at like later they go sit on the other side. Like I've never seen that before either.
Me
And it's
neither.
like these things are like normal, but we don't
Yeah.
because
Like
people don't feel comfortable.
I had trans friends like as early as ninth grade. I
Yeah,
mean,
me too.
that's kind
Like
of late, but like,
or in high school. Yeah.
yeah, like it exists standardly in the world. And the fact that it doesn't exist in Sci Center is like, it's strange.
Yeah. And I think that comes from that disconnect, right? Of like, we have this idea that we do love all, serve all,
Hmm.
but I don't think people feel welcome, right? And I think that
Yeah.
we've also felt that
Yeah.
like lack of welcoming.
Welcomeness.
I don't
Welcomeness.
know. That lack of like feeling like you can just be without like having to kind of like hide certain parts of yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that we've also not necessarily just us experienced it, but like I've heard it from other people too, right? Like
Hmm.
I've heard it being like, oh, like I'm out, but I'm not out in this context for this reason. And it's like, oh, I mean, that makes sense. I think also like part of it is that people gossip like so much. And like
Yeah.
there are like a bunch of reasons why people might not want to be out. But I think it's just that like, I'm sure you've also experienced the like there's always that like surprise or like a little bit of awkwardness. I feel like every
Yeah.
time I do come out, it's like, oh, really?
I
Like,
never would have expected you're gay.
yeah.
It doesn't even have to be that extreme, like so blatantly, oh my gosh, you're gay. It can also be like, oh, cool. You know, it's always like they're it's new information, but it's new information that they didn't expect, right? So like there is something to that. And it's not necessarily from people that are like homophobic. Like these people are well on their way to being allies, but they're still it's so foreign to them that it's like, oh, really? You know?
And I think part of it comes from this idea that like most people I think in the US like know the LGBTQ community exists. And they also are like I was talking about people who like go to Sai centers or like
Mhm.
regularly participating in this. So but I don't think because they've never seen these two things in conjunction,
Yeah.
it's surprising to them too, right? Like
Yeah.
so I think that's part of it. And I think I've also seen that where it's just like you just see it on their face. You can see the surprise on their face when
Yeah.
you say it. Or like people also have this thing where they like don't know how to react, like whispering the word gay. That happens
Oh
a
my
lot.
God.
And they're like,
Like you can say it.
yeah.
You can say it, Auntie. I'm not gonna get offended. It's a combination of that example specifically is a combination of I'm surprised, or not I'm surprised, but yeah, it's a foreign concept to me, but then it's also, I don't know if I'm saying the right thing. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, if I'm not allowed to say this. So there's a lot of fear involved.
I think also the other part of that is that it's like to them, like, and I think honestly, like, even for me growing up, like, gay was not a positive word or even a neutral word, right? Like, it was
Right.
definitely a negatively connotated word.
Hmm.
And I think something is like, oh, like, I don't want to be saying that out loud. Like, I
Yeah,
think there
it's
is that part as well.
we're a fear-based society, especially the South Asian community. This is my opinion, by the way, but
I
we're a
think all the
fear-based.
opinions are our opinion.
I'm just saying you can have a different opinion from me, but we're my experience as a South Asian in a South Asian community is that we are all motivated by fear.
Yeah.
There are a few examples of people that are motivated by like love and blah blah blah. But generally, I find that everyone is motivated by fear. I sing a bhajan at center because I'm afraid that if I don't, somebody will say, "How come you didn't sing today?"
Whoa.
And that's my experience, okay? But I'm afraid that like if I say as a SSE kid, I'm afraid if I say that, oh, I don't want to go to SSE today, my parents are gonna be like, huh? You know,
Yeah.
things like that. We're all motivated by fear to some extent. And I'm not saying that whoever's listening to this, you're motivated by fear. I don't know you. But the foreignness, the othering of things that you don't know about is under that umbrella of fear.
Interesting. I think that's true. But
Hmm.
I also think that, like, at least personally, like, I've definitely experienced conversations with a lot of people who had no idea what they were talking about when it came to the LGBT community, right? Like, they just
Hmm.
don't know the right words, they don't know anything. But I think when talking to those people, like, the intention is really clear. Like, I can tell usually when someone has like good intentions and they're trying to learn something, or when they just are like trying to pick a fight with you in a way that's like not a comfortable fight, you know? Like they're trying to be like, oh, but like being gay is wrong or something like that. And I
Hmm.
think that like to me, that just shows that like if you come into the situation with good intentions, you have nothing to be afraid of, right? Like just like you don't need to be afraid of saying the wrong word.
But they are.
Or but I'm saying that I'm telling the people who are, hello
Oh,
everyone. I'm saying that like at least personally, I don't care. Like I actually much prefer someone coming and talking to me about the LGBT community and not knowing what to say. Like I think
yeah.
that's like at least you're trying. I think the other day someone asked me like what how do you use they them pronouns or something like that.
Hmm.
And it was like very like obvious. We were like having a conversation and this person definitely like didn't know the right way of saying it. But then they like we just talked about it and it was like very clear they're coming from a place of good intention, right? Because they're like, I know someone who uses their pronouns and I want to use them correctly. Even if they say anything else wrong or like not the correct words or whatever, maybe like not the way that we view things as being like the respectful way of saying something, right? I think it's much better at that point because you're at least trying, right? Like you're putting yourself out there to try to say the right words or to be like I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but you're like trying to be better. But if you never even practice or like try to like challenge your own beliefs, like I don't think you'll ever
I think that's
learn
just a
those things.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, I don't know anything about the gay community, queer community, so I'm not going to learn anything about the gay queer community. Or like, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I am learning. And then that's just like, it's a feedback loop where like you don't know anything, you're not going to learn anything. It's not necessarily motivated by like, I don't like them. It's just that I don't know anything. I don't know where to start. I'm not going to start. And therefore, I don't know anything.
I actually have a really good example of this from my own life.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in high school, I had a friend who used they them pronouns. And I remember when I met this friend initially, so like they told us all that they use they them pronouns. And I just remember initially, like my first reaction to this was to be like, oh, I just shouldn't talk to them because I'm gonna mess this up. That
Oh,
was the
yeah.
first
Yeah.
reaction, right? And then I like thought about it more and I'm just like, that's such a like problematic reaction to be like my first instinct, right?
Right.
Because it's like you're gonna like, yeah, I did mess it up, by the way. But it's like, I think that it was quite clear that my intentions were not to mess it up. And then I fixed it and we were actually friends. Like this was
Hmm.
never a problem after like, okay, the first few weeks, I'm sure I made some mistakes. I apologize for those mistakes. We moved on in life. But I think that like initial reaction of like you fearing something that you don't know and you don't want to be disrespectful for that person, it's so much worse because everyone is always fearing that, right? And then they're just going to have no friends. Like that's how this ends, right? It doesn't
And
end
it,
well
yeah.
for anyone if we choose to just like not engage with people who we don't necessarily understand.
And
Like,
it's not when I talk about fear as a motivator for our society, which I still stand by, it's not fear of the thing, right? It's fear of very personal experience. It's like in that example, it's fear of hurting the other person by messing up. Your intentions are so good that you don't want to even potentially mess up, right?
but I think it's worse. Like the consequence is
Oh, it,
worse
it is
of
worse. I
not being
agree with
friends with
you.
someone because they
I
use they
agree
them
with you. It's
pronouns.
worse, but it's still motivated by fear. That's what my point
Yeah,
is.
but it's motivated out of good intention,
But it's
but it's
still
still a
fear.
fearful intention, not a loving
Yeah,
intention. Yeah, you're right.
exactly.
You're right. Yeah. So, Madhu, when
Hmm.
does being queer come up in your life? In like either at Sai Center or like with Sai Center friends, like in the whole community, right?
Yeah. Well, I haven't gone to center in a long time, but that's because I'm in grad school and I'm working full time. Okay, you can't shame me.
I
But
didn't shame you.
not you,
Oh,
people.
people.
But I think in center, I mean, I haven't personally. What you want me to talk about my personal experience, or you want me to talk about things that I can just ideate?
Start with your personal experience and then you can ideate.
Okay. Well, the biggest thing in my personal experience is the gender thing. And by gender thing, I mean everything is binary at center. Seating is binary. Sometimes SSC classes are binary. Bathrooms are
Can
binary.
you can
Well,
you can you just explain what binary is for
oh
those
yeah, sure.
who may
So
not know?
like when we sit in the budgeon hall or devotional hall, like you have women on one side and men on the other side. And that's what I'm defining as binary. It's like you one or the other. And I haven't like questioned my gender or, it hasn't been a big part of my queer journey when I was younger necessarily, but I did start noticing it more and more. Well, first of all, I was very conditioned, right? I've been going to center since I was like literally zero. So I didn't necessarily know that there was anything wrong with that until I met trans people and then I started questioning my own sexuality and then gender identity. And I was like, wait a second. If I'm a girl and I like girls, why am I sitting on the girls' side? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And then the next question was, wait a minute. Am I a girl? You know what I mean? And I think that just like I am forced every time I walk into a budgeon hall or something, there is a part of me, well, it's an ongoing process, right? But there is a part of me that doesn't even recognize the gender in it. I just go and sit down because like that's how I've done my whole life. But then there's the other part of me that sometimes is like, what? Like I just because I want to sing a bhajan or hear a bhajan or I don't know, be here, I have to walk into the room and then choose my gender. And then if I choose the wrong one, who knows what repercussions will ensue, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest like queerness is literally embedded. It's embedded into the structure of a center or a Sai event. And then there's like the social aspect of it where it's not necessarily codified into the workings of the center itself, but it's like it's in how we talk to each other and how we address each other and how we organize ourselves as just a group of people. You know what I mean?
What do
Like
you mean by that?
that happens everywhere. Like it happens in schools and stuff. But in center specifically, like Sairam brothers and sisters, or like
Mm,
that's not written anywhere. That's not in a book. That's like, even Swami doesn't say that. Like, if we're truly the Atma, then why are we brothers and sisters? Shouldn't we be like Sairam embodiments of the divine or something like that? I don't know. Like, it's those small things where you're like, hmm, we're not really trying, are we? We're not trying at all. We're doing the opposite of trying. We're
well, I think
actually
mhm.
entrenching ourselves in the gender binary.
I do think part of that is because no one has like, not many people have like maybe had these thoughts, and probably very like, even if you've had these thoughts, I think very few people have verbalized them or
Yeah.
verbalized them in a way that it's like other people are starting to think about these things too, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're trying to do with side voices. It's just, it'd be vocal,
Yeah, and like
right?
kind of bring more awareness to the fact that like queer people do exist. And I think something that at least happened to me, like personal experience of how being queer came up in my life, with like Psy people, is I think that there's always this assumption that like, and this is true about everywhere, not necessarily just with Psy people, but like in the room, if they don't know like a queer person is there, like people are out here making like all kinds of homophobic, transphobic jokes that
Yeah.
are like, oh, they're jokes, they're like haha funny,
They're
but
not
they're
haha
not
funny.
funny. They're not haha funny, right? But like everyone will laugh along because they're
They're
like,
haha
oh,
bad.
yeah, you're right. They are haha
Haha,
bad.
you're a bad person.
Yeah,
Not
I
you,
don't,
not you, but the Joker.
yeah, but it's like, I don't think it's coming from a place of like evil, right? It's coming from a place of like not knowing. And like part of it is that like they think, oh, like we're all straight and cis in this room, right? So like it's fine for me to make
Yeah.
this like problematic joke. And I think that like before I was out, I would hear these like literally all the time. Like to a point where sometimes it was like every week, right?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, that's so gay, bro. Like, oh, like those kinds of things, or like these like jokes that were definitely like a little uncomfortable, but they're not like super, like they're not like just outwardly homophobic or transphobic. They're just like a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that like now that I'm like very out to everyone, I don't really hear those anymore. And I think it's because people are like, oh, like
Oh, she's
they're,
gay. I can't say it.
yeah, basically, because they also know I'd call them out on this. But I think that like that, like, it's a really problematic thing because it means that like all these people, because we, as we said earlier, like all of these people, 7% who are closeted in these side communities, they're all the ones hearing all these things, right? Like
Yeah.
because no one's out. So there's like no person in the room who's gonna be like, I'm gonna call this out. And it's extremely scary for the like queer person who's not out to be calling out things. So I think that's like kind of where being like an ally comes in, right? Like having people who are there who will call out problematic jokes and be like, okay, just because you think, first of all, you shouldn't even be saying it, even if you think everyone's straight and cis, right? Like there's that. But
Yeah.
I think the other thing is like when you talk, you should assume that like there is a queer person in the room and they're not out because I think that's a valid assumption actually to make.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I mean, ideally, you wouldn't be making
well, don't make the joke to begin with,
problematic
right?
jokes to begin with. I mean, it's not just problematic jokes about the queer community. Like, I know SSC students now that make jokes about all sorts of stuff,
I've definitely heard things about other things too, but
like about
race,
neuro
gender,
neurodivergence, race,
neurodivergence.
gender, all these sorts of things. And I'm like, how are you doing this? But yeah, I agree.
I think
It's
that's where
not.
like the education also comes into play, right? Like I think that part of it is an education thing where like people just need to know. But I think a lot of people actually know. Like they know this is a problematic joke because and that's why I haven't heard it since I came out because they know it's problematic and they're not going to dare say it in front of me now. But it's like the like it's kind of just this idea that like you need to kind of think a little bit harder before you speak, maybe is the
Yeah, it's also the fact that I mean, I'm talking about the essay students that I know now.
Mhm.
Maybe this isn't as applicable for older people, but they are well versed, especially like Gen Alpha, like they know all the terminology, I don't know, the TikTok, whatever. Like they know the stuff, okay? They know the words, they know, okay? But they don't know. They don't know. They don't know what it feels like. They don't know people who identify as such or who are as such, you know? They don't know what the implications are, what the repercussions are, how it affects another person's daily life. Not the joke, I'm talking about like being neurodivergent or being black or being a woman or being queer. Like they don't know because these are currently like cis heterosexual boys who are saying this. And the fact that they're not putting themselves in someone else's shoes is the difficult part because you can only educate someone so far, and it's their job to like take it to heart and do something about how they're acting. Um, but I do agree that like education is the first step because they need. I don't want to keep saying they because they're not the villain, but society in itself is like a lot of the not hate, but a lot of the inconsistencies in respect and love and blah 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 come out of not knowing.
well, I think something else. Like I agree with you.
Mhm.
And there's like this, I think the lack here is empathy, right? Like it's not like the not putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah,
And I think that is something that like Swami literally asks us to do. I can find quotes about this, but
right.
like, so I think what I don't even want to paraphrase this, but like, because I'm going to do a very poor job of paraphrasing it, but I know that there are some quotes. I'll put it somewhere in the, I'll put it somewhere.
Yeah,
But it's like, where Swami is like, when you see someone suffering, like you should feel that as if it's your own, right?
yeah.
And I think that that to me is means that like we're literally meant to put ourselves in other people's shoes. We're meant to feel that like their pain is our pain. How can we alleviate that?
But do people know the pain that other minority communities
Of
experience?
course you don't, right? Like you can't. You can't know it firsthand, but I think you can know it secondhand, right? Like I think
But
that's
I'm
where
asking, do they even know it secondhand? Like I'm
no,
thinking about the
they
SSC
don't.
kids that I'm talking about, like they don't know.
But I think that's the difference between educating yourself from like a book-based education, right? Like
Mhm.
you can educate yourself about like what every identity means in
Right.
LGBTQIA plus. Like all you can literally go through every identity in the plus and you can
Yeah.
know every single one they mean. But if you don't like empathize with people, if you don't listen to like I think everything changes when you have a queer friend, right?
Yeah.
And then that friend is like explains things to you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a literal friend. It can be like us. It can be your friends. Or like it
Yeah.
can be like someone who is like even if you read a book, like it's like if you get that like firsthand experience, I think it's very different than like the book knowledge type like every single identity, you know what it means. Because I don't think that's very helpful, actually. And I think that's where people get stuck, right? Like, I
Hmm.
think some people are like, oh, I need to know, like, in order for me to be a good ally, I need to know what every identity means. But I would
Yeah.
say that, like, this is where, at least in my opinion, I think it's better when people at least try to engage in conversations with me about
Mhm.
the queer community, even if they have like no idea what the right words to say are. Because it's like, okay, I can see you care.
Yeah. I've literally never had anyone in the Psy community, not even my friends,
Mm-hmm.
ask me about my queerness.
That's interesting. I have had people kind of like ask me as like a expert opinion, like, how do I do this? Right. Or like,
Oh,
should I do this? And then I've also had people ask me personally though, like, what are my thoughts on like,
I've never
I
had
don't know,
that.
X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And I no, no, but that's what I'm saying is even I think sometimes those conversations get to a point where they might not be like politically correct. But I
Hmm.
think just like the fact that they exist, like the fact that someone like came and was like, hey, like what do you
How do you feel
like
about blah?
yeah, or like how can I understand this more?
Mm.
Right? Like I think there's the fact that you even like want to understand. I think that is kind of like what will actually change things for people. And that's what actually is going to start making like people have more empathy and then therefore less of these like homophobic transphobic jokes are going to be made in the room and then more people will feel comfortable because they know that like there are people who will accept them when they come out, right? And then I think more people will be out and then more people have representation and then more people will be out and it'll just be like this more normalcy, like we're
Positive
building.
feedback
Yeah,
loop.
yeah, it's a positive feedback loop where we're building towards a more like where you can just be queer and it's not like, oh my
A
God, this is the
thing.
most shocking thing I've ever heard from you in your
Yeah,
life,
it's not a
right?
thing. You're just existing.
And I think that's what we actually want, right? Like, I don't want to feel like I'm walking around with a rainbow flag, but
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I need to in the
Yeah.
current situation we're in. And I think that's just like it's a personal choice, right?
Hmm.
That I've made in some certain ways. But like, I think because I think we are lacking that much in representation, we're actually like over representation, not over representation, but like being very
We're
visibly
being
queer
the representation we
never
wish
had.
we had.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually like so important. Like that, for me at least, like several people have come out to me because of that.
Hmm.
Right. And I think that like, that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's always seen as positive by other people, but it's definitely a positive thing for those people who never had that representation. Right.
Yeah.
But I also think at some point, hopefully it'll be unnecessary. Or like,
Yeah.
you won't need to be so visibly queer because it'll just be a normal thing, like very normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that positive note, how do you think you've developed your own spirituality based on like, I mean, obviously there are like positives and negatives that come with being queer. And I think also there may be some like more positive and negatives that you and I have experienced because we've decided to be like super visibly queer and working on this project. And like, I think that has come with its own set. Like before when I was just out, that was like one set of things. And then now that I'm
Yeah.
like,
This is a unique
it's a
experience. Yeah.
very unique experience. But how do you think we've grown spiritually through this experience?
That's a good question.
I know you have, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. I think my spirituality has is so intertwined with my queerness. And I mean, I'm sure everyone's spirituality is infinitely intertwined with who they are as a person, right? You can't like transpose someone's spirituality to another person and have it make sense. It's all based on your life experiences, blah, blah, blah. But specifically, my spirituality is related to my queerness in that I had so much evidence to reject spirituality when I was growing up as a queer person. I had just like so many so many instances of this version of spirituality is not applicable to me as a queer person. So spirituality is not applicable to me as a queer person. There were so many examples of that as when I was growing up. But the fact that for some reason, I don't know if I can explain that piece of me choosing my own version of spirituality very clearly, like in verbally. I don't know how to really explain it
Hmm.
that well. Maybe I'll be able to at some point. But there came a time where I was able to create an individual personal connection with, I don't even know if it was Swami necessarily, but it was a cosmic tether. I don't know. I sound so like kooky right now. But
No, you
it was
don't. You
it
don't.
was like I am choosing my experience to be valid and true, and I can experience spirituality like this.
Mhm.
And it's like I went to Swami, or I went to another guru that I had, or I went to spiritual texts in order to fulfill my questions about my queerness in a positive way. It wasn't like, Swami, please make me straight. It was like, Swami, please let me understand how this integrates into my life. Please let me understand how I can speak to my parents about being queer. And I would get answers, not immediately, but like it all happened in such a way that Swami was. So I'm using Swami as a filler for my cosmic tether. Swami was part of the process, right? He wasn't. I wasn't. It wasn't me against Swami. It wasn't me and my queerness against Swami and spirituality. It was me and Swami trying to figure out my queerness and how spirituality played it in together. I don't know if that is what you asked, but that
That's
is what
actually
I answered.
exactly, that's like exactly what I was going to say to the same
Okay.
question.
Okay,
And I
go
think that
ahead.
that was exactly what I was going to ask. Like, that was the point of the question,
Okay. Do
which is
you have
great.
a similar experience?
Yeah, I have like a very similar experience. Like, I think that what you said about like, it wasn't like me and my queerness against Swami. It was just like, Swami, how am I going to figure this out? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that that's actually the point in time, like when I started realizing I was gay, and once I started like trying to figure out like what am I gonna do? Like
Hmm.
I'm gonna tell my parents this. I'm gonna like figure this out for myself. Like, what does this even mean? Like, how's the rest of my life gonna look? Because it's like you imagine your life a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like I didn't even know like what is anything in my life gonna look like. And I think that like uncertainty led to a certain like surrender in God, surrender in Swami
Yeah.
that like was very helpful because it's like, and I did get the answers as well, where it's like, okay, Swami, like, what am I going to do about this? Like, I have no idea. And then it's like, okay, your answer comes in the long time it takes.
Yeah.
And I think that that was like definitely, and I think that's like for me, I feel like you can't, like, I don't think I would be as spiritual of a person if I wasn't queer. Like, those two things are not separable
Yeah.
for me. They are just like two things that are intertwined. And it's just part of who I am, both of them. And I think that like they feed into each other positively, not
Hmm.
negatively. And I think for anyone, like being different in whatever way it is, right? Like you gain a certain understanding and a certain like viewpoint and a certain perspective in life. I'm not saying I'm like the most empathetic person or the best person or the nicest
You're
person, but I
the
think,
best person ever to ever exist on the planet Earth. Nobody's better than you,
but I'm just saying that I
except
think,
for me.
of course, but like there's no like I think I come to situations with a different lens, not necessarily a better lens, but a different lens. And I think I would hope that my queerness and like having people not have taken my perspective helps me try to take other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think that like even if I don't agree with the perspective, like it's like okay, I can at least see your side. I
Hmm.
might think it's not right. I might disagree with it completely, but it's like at least trying to see someone's side. I think it's a very positive thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's actually a very helpful thing, and it's a helpful lens that like being queer has given me. Um,
It's like a openness that you're
yeah.
required to have because you thought of yourself as X and now you are
Yeah,
Y.
that box doesn't exist anymore of like,
So it kind of expands your entire how you approach everything in your life.
yeah, yeah. And I think it changes the way like what expectations you have for yourself, right? Like once you've broken those expectations,
For
now it's
yourself and
like,
other people.
yeah, it's definitely for other people, but it's like, why do I care what society thinks about me? So I think that's another aspect of this. It's like we do have this, like, especially, in South Asian communities,
Yeah.
we have this idea of like, oh, like, what are people going to say to whatever I want to
Yeah.
do, or like all of that, right? And I think that that's like, it's not gone completely, of course, but like, this has definitely helped me just be like, okay, like,
Who cares?
literally, who cares? Like, I already did the most scary like thing, right? Like, I already came out. Like, what else are you going to say to me? Like, what else are you
Yeah.
going to say to me? What
And I
else are you going
think,
to have a problem with? Nothing.
yeah. I mean, that's not a unique queer experience. Like, I'm sure there are so many other experiences that also have the same effect of like,
Hmm.
what can you do to me now? I already did the thing, you know? But it's freeing. It's
Yeah.
freeing. And it's not only about your queerness. Like, I feel free about my queerness. I don't know if I feel seen. Like, from this perspective, I'm not sure. But from this perspective, I feel very authentic and very free.
And I don't know how much the other perspective matters. Like, does it matter how other people see you?
I don't think so, but
Yeah.
I'm me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there might be people where, that is it, that is valuable to them, or like it might depend on the person. Like, I don't care if some random auntie thinks of me as something, but it might matter to me that my friend thinks of me this way, or
Yeah.
like my
Hmm.
friend sees me this way, blah, blah, blah. But what was I saying? I was saying it's a freeing experience, and a lot that freeing experience probably exists in so many what's it called, echelons, or what's it called, what is the word I'm looking for?
Levels?
Yes, not levels, so many um whatever, let's just call it levels. There's a word I'm looking for, but that freeing experience exists in so many levels in different aspects, but like it forces you to be what you experience,
Mm.
which is like open and authentic. And it's hard. I mean, I don't always feel free, but like I find myself at 23 so much more honest about everything, not even things that like literally have nothing to do with my queerness. I find myself so much more authentic than I was before. Like I was so cagey and like the I was the shell of the person that I thought I should be, you know?
I definitely experienced that too. Like, it's like, like, I think part of it is just like, I don't like lying anymore. Like, I really, like, I didn't like lying before, but I really don't like lying
Oh my
now.
God, you didn't like lying before? I was such a good liar.
I mean,
I
I
think
was
I'm
good at
still a
it.
good liar.
I think I was fine at it because literally, like, even in school, I think like people just assumed I was Christian and I just kind of let them. Like,
Oh,
this was like when I was like in elementary school,
what made
but
them think that?
because everyone was Christian. Like, this was just,
Oh,
yeah. I
I
lived in like
forget you
rural
grew
North
up in this.
Carolina.
I forget that you grew up in the South.
Yeah.
Is North Carolina the South? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely. It was also like, so I think that was the different part, right? Like, because then like now where I'm from is fine, but
Yeah.
like, so I think that like there are a lot of experiences of things that I just like didn't feel comfortable like doing. So then I just kind of like lied my way through, or like kind of just like, like found ways to like hide parts of myself. And now it's like I don't want to hide anything. I just want to be
Yeah.
authentic because it's like, okay, like not from a queerness perspective, even just from every perspective. It's like, no, I just want to tell you like the whole truth, everything. Like, let me just tell you everything. It's
Because you get exhausted. Like after so many years of like trying to hide or trying to prove that you are something. Like I have a specific experience where somebody asked me, I don't know why we were talking about this. Honestly, not my image of not my idea of fun. But when we were like in middle school or high school, somebody was like, "Oh my God, like who do you want to marry when you grow up?" Vomit, first of all. But I was like so hard trying to skirt around the topic because I didn't know what I was.
Mhm.
And now and I'm just, that's just so exhausting. Like, just I just want to just say what I want to say, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
You just want to be.
yeah. And not have to like put all these filters. Like just get rid of all the filters and just
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like bring every part of yourself to like every like that's one of my goals is to just be the same person in every interaction that I have. I don't know that I'm there yet, but that's definitely something that I'm like, I value this and I want to do this.
That's a good idea. I mean, I think I already do that in for the most part. I hope I do, but I'll keep that in mind.
So thanks everyone for listening to our Side Voices of Belonging podcast. If you have a better name, let us know.
Yeah, please. I don't
Um,
want to call it Side Voice of Belonging podcast.
maybe we'll come up with something catchy and cool.
Like funky.
Yeah. With that though, tune in next time. Oh,
Toodaloo, guys. If you have any ideas for what we should talk about, or if you're like, wow, this podcast sucked so bad, let's change everything about it, we can do that too. Um, Let us know what you want to hear or don't want to hear. Um, and yeah.
I think the other thing, I'm just gonna plug our website, our
Oh
link
yeah.
tree, our Instagram, follow
Our
us on Insta
Facebook.
Facebook. What else?
Um,
Yeah, I think
I don't
that's
know.
we have a YouTube technically, like, there we have our allyship workshop. Go check it out. We're
Yeah,
on all the platforms.
if you're listening to this as an audio, we have it posted as a video, so you can go see our faces if you want.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
if you're watching this as an audio, I mean as a video, hello.
bye.
Um,
Bye.
yeah. See you later.